Well, good morning, everyone. And for those that were here yesterday, hopefully, I'm gonna basically go through many of the same things, but I'll try to sprinkle it with some other information that maybe more on what my state was going through this process. As I mentioned yesterday, uh, you know, in order to understand kind of how I went through the transition of losing my sight to losing my sight completely, and of course, being successful in my life, I really need to start at the beginning, and that amounts to when I was 4 years old. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. At that time, uh, the ratio of type 1 diabetics was 1 in 10,000. And uh, my mom reached out to several people to try to get some help because, uh, of course, I didn't understand it and my family did not understand it. So, in fact, my mom was responsible for starting the Sacramento Diabetes Foundation on my behalf, just to get people to talk and to network. One thing that is important to for everybody to know that as a young kid, I was a tinkerer, and anything that I could get my hands on and take apart, I did, and not always uh, to many people's happiness, especially my folks. But my mom, she was really an advocate for me because she saw something my dad didn't see, and that was that would be beneficial later in my life. And it was that at that very young I started playing with electronics. Uh, I received my first soldering iron when I was 8 years old. That caused a family dilemma because of do you give an 8 year old something that's very hot? And my mom's attitude was, well, if he burns his fingers, he'll learn quickly that you shouldn't touch it that way. So anyhow, that started me off on a real. It really sparked my curiosity. So I continued tinkering and taking things apart. But what was really key to me at that time was I wanted to understand how things worked. And although I didn't in many cases, that's where the curiosity really was born in me at a very young age. So moving a little further, right about the time I was 15, I had my first job. I was a lawnmower, but the one thing that came up was cars, and I was eager to get involved with cars at a young age. And at 15, my dad made me an offer. He said, "I'll let you buy a car before you're even 16 and able to drive, but the key is that it can't run." So, of course, I used my mowing the lawn money and bought this big clunker. And that was really when I realized, uh, for most people, they just wanted something to run, but I wanted to understand how it ran. So that kind of made it two fields for me. I started working on that car. I rebuilt a transmission in it. I fixed the engine problems, and I also was born a new interest, and that was in automotive. So, I had this interest in electronics, and I had this interest in automotive, and so that kind of, you know, I've kept that today, and uh, even still today, as a blind man, I still wrench on a lot of cars. But that's where it all started. When I was in high school, I wanted to get into automotive classes, but they were booked. So I ended up taking some metal, and then I also took wood shop. Well, there started another huge interest for me. So I couldn't get enough wood shop, and in high school, I won the state competition for a project that I had created in 10th grade. And it's actually a table, it's a backgammon table that we still have in our house today. So as you can see in my life, I was definitely a tinkerer, and I had a lot of interest in a lot of different areas, which little did I know how that would benefit me much later in my life. But it started at a very early age. While in high school, I've restored Victorian houses. I spent a lot of time from learning how to work with wood, doing very elaborate moldings in Victorian houses and staircases and all that kind of stuff. And so for me, it wasn't really work. It was really, I loved working with my hands and machinery, and I had somewhat of a knack for it. So coming towards the end of my high school, my parents decided to put in a pool, and I was broke. So I asked the contractor, "Hey, is there a chance that I could do some work for you?" And he said, "Sure." So I became official ditch digger, and I was a good ditch digger too. But I did the ditch digging thing, and the reason I bring that up is because at one point I asked him, "Hey, is there anything other than digging ditches you'll let me do?" And he said, "What do you want to do?" And I was always first to step into something, and I said, "Well, how about plumbing, or how about electrical?" And he said, "Well, we're doing two pools right next to each other. One is plumbed. Go look at it, plumb the second one." So that was a huge challenge, but I didn't take even a second thought. I went over, studied one, plumbed the other. And of course, for the next quite a few years, I did all the plumbing and electrical for swimming pools. And that went into the owner also built houses. So he had me in his houses. And by the time I was done with all of it, I had tested for my electrical contracting license, and I also had still kept my automotive interests alive, and I got my ASC certification in auto mechanics. So I was doing electrical during the day, and I was working as a mechanic at night, and and then I was also starting to do some schoolwork at a community college. My interest at community college was, at a very young age, my uncle, who was an engineer, I had asked him, I had a stereo, and I had the lid off and everything, and I asked him, who put all those parts in there? And he had said, well, that a technician during manufacturing puts those parts in there. And I said, well, who knows how it all works? All those parts work. And he said, those are engineers. And so that was the first time I had learned about what engineers do, but I had my sights on it. So when I started community college, I was doing, I was taking courses for my prereqs for engineering. I was also taking automotive courses because of hobby. I enjoyed being in those classes and getting, more knowledge and skill. And it really did. It carried me a long ways. And I always felt that in the worst case, even if I didn't succeed in my engineering, I had all these other backup traits or skills that could really help me. And I don't know if I would say that is totally true when when everything fell apart for me. So when I finished pretty much my prereq at community college, which was, I think, at the same school that Diane went to, Sierra College, uh, I was accepted into the University of Colorado Boulder for their engineering program. And so I left California and I went to the Rockies. But something that I need to bring up that was a couple 2 months before I left, I had a retinal bleed in my right eye, and that really rocked everything. But I was determined to get to Colorado, so I went through surgeries, and they couldn't save the eye. So I went totally blind in the right eye, and being around all the doctors, they said, we really need to do lasers on the left eye, so to hopefully preserve any vision. So I had over 5,000 laser shots in my left eye at that time, and headed for Colorado. Because in my mind, regardless of what was going on with my vision, my passion and my goal was more important to me than the vision at that time. However, when I got to Colorado, the reality of things started to really set in, because I had, I remember being in classes and they would put something up on a projection slide, and I would have to ask the guy next to me, what's up there? Because I couldn't see any of it. So finally, after I spent quite a bit of time there, I knew I needed some medical help. So I left Colorado and came back to California, and I got some medical help. But during that whole period, I never reached out for those that could help me deal with, my vision trouble. And I had really, it was the wrong attitude, because I felt that if I had achieved, especially my credentials in engineering, that people would think I cheated or something because I got help, which worked way against me. But I got back to California, and I did start back up. I started back up at Sac State in their engineering program. And I also were seeing several doctors and trying to get a handle of what's going on with the only eye I had left. So towards the end of my degree at Sac State, I had interviewed with IBM, and I was hired by IBM. And before I even graduated from Sac State, and 2 days before I was supposed to start my new job, I lost the sight in my left eye completely. So the IBM job was a big thing to me, because I hired in as a technician, and after our interviews, they said we would much rather use your skills as an engineer here. So I got hired as an engineer there, but I never got to start the job because I went total 2 days before I was supposed to start. So, I had a lot of things going on. I was still trying to finish my schooling, and I went to one professor and I said, look, I have to pull out of the class. He said, why? I said, I went blind. He said, oh, you went blind? Well, why do you have to quit class? That was shocking to me. I thought it was completely obvious why I had to quit class. He said, no, my wife's been blind for her whole life, and let me have her call you. And she really was the olive branch for me, that said, hey, there's a whole world out here that can help you. You know, quit being so stubborn, and you know, you can't do it all on your own. All those things that I didn't want to hear, that I got to hear, and that really, really, for lack of a better term, opened my eyes. So she had convinced me to go get in touch with the Department of Rehab and actually attend the Orientation Center for the Blind in Albany. And of course, I did that. And that's where I met my wife. And that's where I told everybody yesterday she fell in love with my leather jacket. Don't have it anymore, but we're still in the game. And I love her dearly. She knows that.
Oh. I do.
So anyway, coming out of OCB, I still, I was in a depression. There's no doubt. And I tell people I had probably a 7 or 8 year pity party about what was taken away from me. But one thing that was important for people to realize, I still wanted to do what I do. And I knew that, I heard several, my family and people telling me that you can, there's other blind people who do things. And that really didn't, I don't know if that really helped me. I still felt that there's no way I could do the stuff I want to do. How am I going to look at any of those machines? You need sight to look at them. And it was a constant argument in my family. And Brandy and I even argued about it, because it was very hard for me to figure a way, I was going to be able to do it. But what did occur to me was, okay, I had gone to school to learn how hardware works, and down to minute levels. But what was I going to do to help myself? And that's really where my story takes off, because I said, I need to go back to a community college and get software skills, because I need to be able to make things accessible to myself. And so that's kind of how my story goes. I started building my toolkit and reinventing myself. It's, I did interview for many jobs, and I got a lot of no's, but I did have some successes. And, but it all comes back to building my toolkit. What could I do to add to the toolkit? So in 1999, I designed a text-to-speech synthesizer called the Triple Talk PCI. And that was a synthesizer that made computers accessible, aided in that whole package. And I did it with something else in mind, and that was to build my engineering toolkit. So all the products I designed, even though they were sold to the blind community, and I'll go through a couple more I've done here, and they extended beyond the blind community. They were to build my toolkit in my mind. So in 99, in 2000, I started a company called Access Solutions. And the purpose of that company was to build adaptive equipment for the blind. So now I was actually using my blind skills and my education and designing product. And that's really all I wanted to do. I never, my original dream was actually to be an engineer that designed electronics for the automotive industry, because I was looking to mate my two biggest interests of my youth, but life changes and we adapt. And so in 2000, when I started the company, of course, the first product released was the triple talk PCI, and then the second product was the triple talk USB. And I think it was someone yesterday brought up, well, did you do the triple talk mini? And yes, I did, but that didn't happen in succession. I had developed a product called the Deck Talk USB, which was based off of the original digital design by the original deck designed by Digital Corporation. But that whole episode was something that I'd like to share, because I got a call from Lockheed Martin and they needed a speech module developed for them. Well, I had just developed the Deck Talk USB, so I had a board that could talk, and they had a special application, and it ended up being called the DT200LH. It was just a model number, but I started working on that design to fit their need. And that really probably was one of the most exciting parts of all the synthesizer line, because I was working with an outside company, and I was working with a separate engineering team. I had designed the module, and I was trying to work with their engineers to get it to fit into the air traffic control systems in what they call the STARS system. And the one thing that I had a lot of trouble with was I was terrified to let them know I was blind. I had no vision. And a few times that got me in a lot of trouble, because I refused to tell them, because up until that point, anytime I let the cat out of the bag, I didn't get the job. So I thought, perfect, that's easy. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag until I've already had a chance to prove my work. So once I remember a time where they called me, and this design went on for 2 years. So I had created many diagrams and of components and stuff. Schematics is what we call them. And they had a question about a certain circuit in one of my schematics, and they called me on the phone, and they were trying to get it pass through regulation. And I said, sure, I'll help you. What do you need? And they said, well, can you bring up the schematic? And we got questions about such and such. And I froze, because, I knew I could not, I had my design work back and had schematics for it, but I couldn't see any of them. So I said, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. I'm having horrible computer trouble. Can I call you back? And they said, no, we need this information now. I said, look, I'd love to do it, but you know how computers work. They can, they can give you trouble, that blue screen. And I went on, and finally the guy says, yes, all right, call me back. I went back and studied all these pieces to memorize it, so that I didn't get caught in that situation, when it would have been much easier just to be honest. I don't know what he would have said, but they had already taken the product all through regulation, and we were right at the tail end. And the amount of money that was spent, I highly doubt they would have backed out. But I was still embarrassed. I was froze, and because in my past, when I had let people know, that got me into trouble. And so, that was an important part in my story. And after that incident, I got a call from the FAA, and they needed the module, and then it just kept flowing. I got a call from Raytheon, and all kinds of U.S. Steel. They wanted these modules in their announcement systems, and it just kind of snowballed. And so I spent a lot of time actually doing some tech support, because it was new applications, for you know, the same module. So then I did another product for a company called ATI that helps people that can't speak as well as can't see well, and that was another type of a speech module that I designed, and that module. The neat part about that is the other engineer that I had worked with, I have become friends with, and we've been friends ever since. And but in the beginning, he had no idea that I was blind until he was trying to fit the module into their product, and we've established a friendship that has gone on for many years, and still goes today. So that moves us a little forward, and I hope I'm not using too much wind here. But in 2009, there was a project that I decided to take on because of my own situation, and that was diabetes. Diabetes obviously had taken my sight, and I wanted, the best control I could have. And I wore an insulin pump that is not accessible. So I said, okay, I need to design a product to make the insulin pump accessible. So I started a project called the Pump Mate. And of course, that took up quite a bit of time. Today, I probably am the only one that has a fully accessible insulin pump, but I tried to get it out to the blind community. I ran into nothing but hurdles because of the FDA, because the Pump Mate needed to go through FDA, and I couldn't get the financing behind it to push it through FDA. But it is something I am still passionate about, and I still work on it. I have filed 2 separate patents that has cost us a fortune, but it is something that I'm still today passionate about, and it's an ongoing project that I don't think I'll ever let go until it actually does succeed, because I've worked with the big players, Medtronic. They produce the pumps, and I couldn't understand why you would give a pump to a blind person that's not accessible. And they still today do not have good answers about that. It's a liability issue, but that's a discussion for another day. So I thought I'd bring that up. In 2013, I received the Jacob Balatin Award from the National Federation for the Blind for my development of the Pump Mate. And I went down and demonstrated it and gave a talk down there. And when I came back from that convention, I was really moved by how many blind diabetics really want a blind accessible pump. So that feeds into my interest too, of how many people really need it.
Yep.
So as I mentioned in the beginning of my talk today, I had all these interests and hobbies that I did to try to make it through. And in 2013, I went to reinstate my contractor's license, and I was told that I could not. And so that started a year-long battle with the California State Contractors Board, that a blind man could actually wire and do electrical work. And I went round and round with the head of the California State Contractors Board. I wrote letter after letter, and I finally decided, you know what, I can't, this guy's not going to let me do it. So I need to just go there and tell him I'll sleep I'll sleep inside until they let me have it. And he said, he finally did come out, and he said, all right, I've read a ton of your letters. If you can pass my test, I'll let you have it. So I said, sure. So I signed up, I took the test, passed the test, and I've had my license back ever since. And I have a business. I started a business in 2014 called JK Electric, and the whole purpose of that was to kind of get out a little bit, and you know, it's based in my old roots of doing some wiring, and here we are at 2021. JK Electric still is going, and it's something I do enjoy, and it gives me kind of a break from the engineering stuff, but at the same time, that I still have that interest, and in fact, I am taking some. I got accepted into Sac State's graduate program for engineering, and people say, well, geez, you know, you did the school thing. Why would you ever go back? And I'm never done building my toolkit. You can always learn more, and for me, it's not only learning just more, but it's learning better ways to get around the one obstacle that we have of not being able to see. I'm currently working on a design that will allow blind people to read advanced mathematics that none of the screen readers to date will read. So, you know, it's a project I've taken on, and, you know, it keeps me going. So that's, I'm always trying to, like I say, build my toolkit as well as increase my network. Just starting back up, I've already made more contacts, and, you know, contacts are opportunities. And so I try to treat them with great respect. So and being accepted in the Sac State, there was one area I did want to mention, and that is there was a program, just to give you an example, that they use in grad school in my field. It's called MATLAB, and it's not very accessible, pretty much not accessible at all. So I wrote a program called MathBat, and MathBat basically is the go-between MATLAB and me, and basically it makes MATLAB accessible to the blind. And I'm using it today to take graduate level courses. So that's a good example of how, you know, I went quite a few years back to a JC to get software skills, and here I use those software skills in my toolkit to build myself a way to get around that problem that it wasn't accessible. You know, but I will note that Sac State has been a tough one for me as far as getting some assistance there. Actually, I've mentioned this to Shane, and all I can say about that is you've got to be your best advocate, and you got to fight for what you want, because they don't hold your hand there very well. And so with that, I think that's pretty much the story I'm sticking to. Is there any questions?
So in your electrical business, what is the most common, this is Brandy, by the way, what's the most common call that you're called out for?
Common call I'm called out for.
Yeah, what's the most common job you've done?
Zinco panel replacements.
Yeah.
And those are just main circuit panel replacements.
Yeah. It's a blind guy changing out your panel in your house. So it's not just like outlet replacements or hanging a fixture, or it's the main electrical panel of your house.
And use most of the time when I do somebody's panel, then I get, well, could you give me a bid to do 6 ceiling fans? I need all the outlets. I got this weird science going on, and it just leads to other work, and I'm on next door, and but I still am nervous every time I go out to meet, because I still don't tell them until I bid the job, and so I always walk my jobs before I bid them, so they get to see me, and I've only had maybe 3 or 4 where they said we just don't feel comfortable with a blind person doing this work. And I have other guys who work with me, but I've had a couple, but not very often, and most of the time, and I've had just about every customer become a repeat customer. Once I've done it once, then that's out of the way, and I get a lot of repeat work.
Jim, this is Liz. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked yesterday for the benefit of the people in the room today. If you could name like the top 3 skills that really assist you in being able to do what you do, what would they be? Because we do have a lot of students that have worked in construction. We have some students that have been engineers. What can you tell them? What 3 skills do you find useful for being able to do it?
Yeah, and after you asked that question yesterday, I thought about it after everything we had finished, and I had said, your networking and your communication skills really help, because, and there's a reason I said that, because I don't doubt that any of your students are able to do these things. It's just that several times we're our own worst enemy. And most construction people that I have met are really great at finding ways to get around problems in construction. And those skills we use with blindness. We're problem solvers. And we don't always do it the same way in construction either. So a lot of times it takes, and what's worked for me is, yes, I played a lot, as far as honing my skills on my own, but having other people that kind of, witnessed it gave me confidence. And they also said, hey, he could still, he still does it. And he can't even see the thing. And that kind of little buildup, boost, gave me more energy to try harder. And because when you're having trouble with your site, your confidence goes to 0. And the first thing I would do is just start doing things at home that are going to build that confidence back up. I have no doubt there's not a student I could meet that can't go back in construction if that's what they want to do. And the amount of adaptive equipment that they will need is very little. They already have the equipment.
Thank you, Jim.
Sure.
Hello?
Hello?
Jim?
Yeah.
Hi. This is Armando Hernandez.
No, Armando, yes.
I joined you guys a little late, but I really enjoyed the seminar. So thank you, first of all. Secondly, so I'm kind of right now looking into a few things that I found the adaptive technology that's coming out lately is obviously becoming more and more impressive and exponentially more helpful as time goes on. How do you feel about like home integration and at-home smart devices such as light fixtures, such and such, and things like that? If you have any input on that sort of a thing.
Yeah, I've actually installed some of it, and I think it's helpful. Uh, Although, for me, we actually have some echoes in our house and stuff like that, and and when it comes to that kind of stuff, uh, I think it's very handy, and it spoils me, and I would never tell somebody not to do them, and I don't get too many calls with problems with them, but like the thermostats, right, that you can control remotely, uh, that's still, I haven't made that jump because I come from the old Levington school, which was still a network, and funny things happened at weird times, and because they're relying on an RF signal. So those things. Have you ever? Do you ever remember the days somebody's garage door was open because of remote controls? Well, we've done great jobs at encrypting things today, but it still happens, and that's always been the angle I've taken. However, I have put several of those thermostats in. So, it's, I like it. My focus today is in AI and deep learning, because I think I could take the whole, we have screen readers and things like that, but I felt for a long time that they're way behind the eight ball. And so I want to do something that's going to really bring a screen reader where I think it should be.
Yeah, I could see how that could actually be more helpful, because I'll tell you, with the seeing AI, the light function is pretty good and the color function is okay, but there's definitely much room for improvement. And the reason I brought up the what is it, the automated fixtures, the smart fixtures for the lighting, is because that, to me, it's like it almost gives a tangible representation for visually impaired people to be able to know that in the next room their lights on or whatever. What I mean?
There are those.
And do you recommend any? Actually, I'm sorry. Do you recommend any light fixtures? Because have you installed any that are pretty good? I've been looking into the Philips one, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, though I've seen the Philips. I'm trying to remember. There's a couple different ones, and really a lot of it is trial by fire. I mean, one customer, we put in a couple. He's tickled with them. I'm trying to remember what we did, what brand we used, but because I trust a lot of that stuff in the beginning.
Sure.
But here's the thing: they all have to go through the approval process, and so most of the time they don't cause any trouble. It's more that the trouble on the user end, and it's kind of a new arena, but they're like, it was only a year or two ago I started putting in the Nextel thermostats, so so it's for me, I'm kind of old fashioned. I like, when I turn the switch off, it is off. They are a lot easier to install. That's the nice part about it. So there's pros and cons on both sides.
For sure. Well, hey, thank you again very much for the presentation, and you're an inspiration, bud.
Oh, well, thank you. And so are you. We play some good music. We'll have to continue that.
Exactly. You know it.
Wow. That's a good lead in. Okay. Hello?
Hello.
Yes. Hi. Good morning. Norman again. First of all, thank you again for the inspiration on yesterday. I actually took out the pedal board that I was talking to you about. It's a Line 6, and you and Diane and Jilly had kind of said, "Hey, those stop looking and just start touching and feeling," and it's something that I'd used for 4 or 5 years, and I put it away for about 5 or 6 months, but all I just needed to do is get back in there and touch it and get used to it again and not be intimidated. So, and on that note, do you work on electronics? Do you, i.e., amp repairs? I have a SWR, a California Blonde, and Taboo Twin, and the pods are real dirty and crunchy, and it's tubes and all that. Is that something that you do?
Yeah, I used to. I haven't done tube amps for quite some time. Used to do a lot of them. Uh, that's not something I would. That's not a charge type of thing I do anymore. I just do it as hobby. I've repaired, guitars for Randy, and did all the soldering, and I'm able to solder blind. I've come up with a technique, and I'd like to be able to show some of you guys, how I do things like that. I've also sweated a lot of copper for plumbing, and I do it all blind. I had restored our bathroom in our house, and I put in everything, the flooring. I did all the sheetrock. I did all the valves. I did all the plumbing, and I sweated all the fittings. And it's something that I do as a hobby, more these days, and from aside from my electrical business. But yeah, we could definitely take a look at your amp and figure out what's going on with it. And it's always a challenge for me, and I enjoy that challenge. That's the kind of the deal, but it's not something I used to repair TVs and stereos and all that kind of stuff for years, and now it's I don't do it as for profit. I do it for fun.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I will be following up with you.
But please keep touching your gear, learning how to, there are things like that Roadie 2 that I use.
Yeah.
It's got a
the time is now 11.
Once I did have to grab somebody to read one of the screens on it in its setup, and that's all I had to do. And now I use it all the time. You don't have to ever look at it. You just need to know how many times to click for what tuning you want, and it does the trick.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, Jim, it's Sam, and so no more dumb blind girl questions today.
All right.
I hope. Okay,
there is never a dumb question.
Never a dumb question.
Or a dumb blind girl. So you have, when you see a need for something, and the tool doesn't exist, you make the tool. But most of our students are not in a position to create their own tools. And I'm pretty sure that you used a lot of tools that were already there. You didn't have to reinvent the wheel entirely. So what kind of tools did you use to be successful doing, the software classes that you did at the JC, and now even at Sac State, or in your business? I mean, all of that would have tools that are already available to our people.
Well, let's just start with my wood shop that I have in my garage. I have 2 tools that I had to purchase. One was called a click rule, and the other one was a talking level. And probably the battery's dead in that, because rarely do I ever grab it. So it really comes down to one tool, and that's my click rule. And it's for measurement. Everything else, when I go buy a tool, I at the hardware store or wherever, I look at it of how it will benefit me, and I will be able to use it safely. Some saws have better guards than other saws, and really, a lot of times I've just made my own little templates in the shop. If I have to do a really tricky cut, I'll grab some scrap wood and build some kind of template where I know I'm not going to hurt myself, so that I can run the piece of work I have through the saw the way I want to do it. And most straight cuts, I don't I don't ever have to do that. But there are some situations, and I do that same kind of thing with with my schooling. I use standard screen readers. The only difference with me is I have written a lot of drivers and stuff for JAWS, and used to be Window Eyes, and all the different packages. So I am able to get underneath the hood if I need to, and I don't have to do it that often. JAWS, for the most part, sometimes lack of information is information. So and I've had to do that, but how I got through the first programming course, I forget what screen reader I was using, but I just used a screen
Window
reader.
Eyes.
Window Eyes, was that what I was using?
Yeah.
And a long white stick, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, he had Thule. He had a guide dog.
Yeah, I had a guide dog at that time.
She gave him all the answers.
And became the running joke, because I took the high and all those classes I took there, and they all said that I didn't do anything. It was the dog.
So how do you write out an equation?
What was the question?
How do you write out an equation in your class that you're taking now? How do you write out your equations?
The way I write out my equations is I created my own nomenclature for math, and that works in Notepad. Everybody knows how to use Notepad, and everybody, if I tell them I'm sending you a file in Notepad, everybody knows what it is. It's just a text editor, and I write my equations out in a.
If it helps the infection, it's worth it.
Was somebody asking a question?
No, somebody. Hey guys, so someone is having a conversation and they're not muted, so we're picking up on your background noise.
So anyway, that's how I accomplish the math. I write. I have my own, little nomenclature that I've just created for myself. And really, for most people, it doesn't make any sense. But the instructors at Sac State, I sat down with them and said, "This is how I write this. This is how I write this," and they've accepted it. So. If the math is wrong, the math is wrong. But they understand my little nomenclature that I use.
So would you say that having a discussion with your professors at the beginning of your semester is probably key? Sitting down and really explaining to them and having a good conversation with them is probably really important.
Every class you take, way beforehand, you need to reach out to the instructor. You need to tell them your situation. And don't, the mistake I made was I counted on some help, and that help, you have to rally yourself. And I found that my success is reaching out to the instructors and having a good one-on-one with the instructors. And every instructor I've ever met has said, "Look, if you have any trouble, call me directly. We'll work it out." And they've been a big asset in getting me extra resources if I needed it, because they have some clout.
Thank you. That's really great, and that's really, really helpful information.
Hello. Hi, Jim. This is Kai and Williams.
How you doing, Kai?
Doing good. How do you figure out the line with so many hobbies and interests? Like, how do you figure out what's worth pursuing as a job and what's a hobby?
Well, I think it really comes down to don't think of them as somebody's pretty loud in the background.
Yeah, hold on, Jim. There's a lady having a conversation on the phone, and we can hear you. So if you don't mind muting yourself, it's getting distracting.
Yeah. That's the way I ever do.
Can we see who that is?
It's a matter of fact, you know. I'm
Kelly Barrows.
Come on yet.
Kelly, can you please mute yourself?
I think. Well, do you want to try, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, absolutely.
Sorry about that.
No, not a problem. So really, you know, having hobbies and what you want to do for work, you know, often are different. But I never looked at it like that. I looked at what I enjoy doing, and that's what I would encourage you to do. What do you really want to do? And you know, if you have a hobby that you enjoy so much, wouldn't it be awesome to be paid for that too? So that's kind of the approach I've taken. It doesn't don't put yourself in a box. You know, if whatever you're going to find for yourself, it took me a lot of years to figure out that I could do these things just as well as I could when I could see, but they didn't all come up at the same time, you know. And so a good example is I played a lot of guitar, and when I lost my sight, I couldn't play the thing at all. In fact, I put pieces of Scotch tape on the back of my guitar so I could know, you know, if I went way up the fretboard, how to make that chord up there. And it didn't work at all. I mean, I realized later that just let my body do it, you know, just muscle memory, you know. And it's the same thing with what I do in my construction and my electrical. After a while, I truly could do the job blindfolded because I've developed a technique that I never thought about. I just wanted to get the job done in the beginning, but that also gave me the answer of how to approach it. Learn to feel things and really understand what you're touching, and you'll realize that the red light bulb does go on, and you'll realize that your hands can see just as good as your eyes. You just don't realize that. And once you do, then, you know, I pick out details in work all the time from my guys, and they're like, nobody will ever see that. I did, you know, and that's the truth.
How'd you decide what to pursue as a career as opposed to a hobby? Was there something that you just knew that you wanted to do as a vocation instead of for fun?
Well, in the beginning, I didn't think any of it was I could make money at, you know. So, and part of it was I didn't want all those things to be taken away. But if you put the energy into anything, if you put enough time into anything, then you have something that is marketable. And you know, we hear it all the time on the TV. You know, people that have, you know, there's the one guy that ended up a painter and that is blind, and he just kept with his hobby. He ended up making money from it. And that's kind of, you know, how I try to encourage people is that last thing you want to do is give up your hobby. If that's what's getting you through right now, until you decide, you know, on a certain thing to go after for a career, then maybe that's what you need to do is just focus on some of those hobbies, include the thing that you want to do as a career, but also reach out and find out, you know, are there others doing it a different way? You know, there's a lot of answers out there that I wish I would have known when I tackled it.
Thank you.
My question is for Brandy. Brandy, yesterday you said that he can fix anything. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything but dinner.
So my follow-up question is, where do I get me one of those?
I read them out.
All right,
They're all your students.
I don't even question anything anymore. I just go, hey, it's broken. Okay. And usually I'm the one who broke it.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I need somebody to fix my messes. That's really cool. Thank you guys for sharing. It's really awesome, Jim.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I don't know if any students have any more questions.
Yeah, this is Eric. I do.
Go for
What do you
it.
got,
Hi,
Eric?
Jim. My name's Eric Maxey, and I'm also a diabetic, and I'm very curious about the pump that you designed. Now, does that talk to you, or I mean, how does it communicate with you? Because I too have a Medtronic's pump, and I've been telling doctors, I'm sure I'm not the only diabetic that's blind, and I've been looking for a pump that would actually communicate to you instead of trying to have to figure out what's mine telling me now.
Well, they don't make, there isn't a pump that was made to talk to you, but what I had created was it's a remote control that talks, and so what it does is you have your pump that's clipped to your belt, and you want to know what, if you wanted to take a bolus or you wanted to know what a setting was, then I use this remote control that does talk, and it communicates wirelessly with the pump.
Double tap to open.
And that's why I keep pushing for it for people like you, because they gave you a pump, and their claim is they don't want to use my product because of the liability, and yet they gave a blind person a pump. So you trust somebody making a guess more than you trust my device, and so that's why I tackled it, and it's something I hope to be able to
I'm
offer
sure
to
it
the
had
public.
something to do with revenue raising also. So
oh yes, no, it's a mess is what it is.
yes, it is.
But it's a fight that the blind community is going to have to still fight until we get a win, and we will eventually. But it's it's been a lot of years, and one of the things I had to do with the product was take it through clinical trial, and so mine has been in clinical trial for 2009, 12 years,
right?
And I have not had a failure yet. So,
well, if you ever need a test subject, I'm in.
I hear you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Essentially hacked their protocol, but they weren't very impressed with the fact that he hacked their protocol.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
You got attention.
It's got their attention, though.
Sometimes you have to do things to get the attention on something, and that's what I did. I hacked their protocol, and they were more interested in the fact that I broke it than what I had to offer, I think.
Yeah.
Well, Godspeed on that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We won't stop fighting. Fight for accessibility.
Do you guys have any children?
Yes.
We have a son.
15-year-old son.
Will you adopt me and show me how to play guitar?
Absolutely.
Inviting myself in, that's what I'm doing. So
And you're very welcome.
Okay.
You gotta get into the music group out there, and we all make a lot of noise, and it's more about, we kind of teach each other, what we do, and everybody's got a different approach, and you take away with what helps you. That's what's cool about it.
Cool. Again, looking forward to when we open up and can do that. I walked through the music room when we did the tour, and I saw the keyboards and some of the equipment in there already. So, and I'm active now, but I'm having to adapt, because you mentioned the Scotch tape on the back of the neck. I took some dots and put a couple along the neck.
Get rid of them. I swear, get rid of them.
Yeah.
You'll thank me later. You can make those chords. You don't need the dots, but and don't if you have a little bit of sight, don't use your sight. Play in the dark. Just really, it'll make you a way better player too. You'll be able to feel, your way around really well. You just have to let yourself do that, and you'll impress yourself, I'm sure.
As soon as you said that, it struck a chord with me, because I recently did it, pardon the pun, and then I could just hear Jill or Diane saying the same thing. So,
well, I did the same thing, and it caused me more trouble, because I'd get to the dot and it'd be the wrong dot, So, it's not, it didn't work so good for me. But
do you use any of the software, like Randy had mentioned? I think it was called Dancing Dots to read charts, or any recommendation? And I can follow up on this later, but I'm just curious about that.
The main one I use is Reaper, is what I've been using, and I haven't done too much with it. I worked with Randy too. We've done some Jamulus stuff, and we've kind of tailored that, for doing kind of group sessions over Zoom, and things like that. But we're constantly throwing around ideas, and he asked me stuff, I asked him, and we're kind of learning our way through some of this. So the best thing I could say is, let's hopefully the center will be open relatively soon, and we got to get everybody in there and pick up where we left off, which is really what it sounds like you need, is just to be around other blind people that are doing the same thing and having similar issues. And there's people find amazing ways to get around some of this stuff non-visually, and it inspires me too. I find new ways of doing things, and my playing has gotten a lot better. So
amen. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right, we got any other questions? We got to get Liz back in the music group.
I know she's been out too long. Well, I think that's a wrap, huh?
I think so.
I think so. Thank you guys very much. It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All righty.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you for a wonderful and inspiring presentation.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very inspirational.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and happy St. Patrick's Day.